Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I have 1v1 Mango. And, of course, as you can see, this is a rip match. And I know, everyone is doing rip matches, okay? But, in my defense, I liked Ripped first. I've already done videos of him, more so than any other Advance Wars player. So, I stake my claim I get to do it. This is a Smacky Cup game from, I want to say it's the Finals of Smacky Cup 2. And, let's do it. Okay, first things, obviously, 2 base versus 1 base. The 1 base is offline, which just is going to make this defensively a little bit more tricky. And I'm just going to divide the map into like a little section. There's this section, which I don't think highly of. There's this section, which is majority of the front, and to be honest, most of what happens tends to happen in here. And then there's this box. Okay, just starting up here. I don't really care too much. There's only 2 real cities in here. The stronger side player has this better entrance in. I mean, sure, you could put a unit here, but you got 2 sides which you can easily blow it off. The lower player has to go around a mountain to get units in here. There's this bridge entrance, which is, it's really only good for vision. And I think most of the time, in this case, the player 2 is going to be getting it more often. So, I think it's kind of spoken for. Over in this area, I mean, there's not a ton to say, but it's basically the standard, battlefront. Noteworthy things, though, I would say, if we put, like, the line here, if you're trying to push in from this side, let's say your Nabir is trying to push in, there's 1 city. If you're Rip trying to push in, there's multiple cities. Something to think about. Moving to the center, we of course have the mountains, which there are mountains. So basically the vision, let me take a step back. 1, it's very likely your opponent has a unit, infantry or whatever on the mountain. Trying to take these just seems almost ridiculous. Basically you get vision in this little area up to the mountains, and if you're in here, 1, your opponent probably has vision. 2, you're most likely on a tile that doesn't grant a lot of defense. It's probably not a great idea. So you don't want to stay here, but at the same time, you may feel the need to front switch during the match. So how do you do it? Well, you could just go this way. This is the more direct route, which your opponent can see exactly what you're doing and knows what's going on. Or we go through this route, get over here, and it's a little more in the backwoods, but they can't see it. The problems with this with this though is, 1, you have a city. I'm sorry, what the hell am I saying? You have a forest, and the forest is going to just add an extra movement to all of your vehicles going by. And secondly, this is kind of a constricting 1 tile wide pathway. So what that's going to do is, let's say, I have a tank here and a tank here, and they both want to move over to this side, down here. But let's follow their path. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right here, right? Now keep in mind, this would require 2 additional movements, which means so they can't use that 6 movement, right? So this guy goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He can't take another one. This would be an extra 2 for a tank. So right away, the first tank can't use his maximum movement. This tank, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait a second, there's already a tank on this position, this tank. So it has to position itself here. So it only gets to use 4 of its own movement. So because of this, the tank's not being able to make their full movement. It's somewhat inefficient, especially if, let's say, your tanks were over here. Oh, that's too big. If let's say your tanks are over here, it has to go back down, or just a diagonal line. And again, this has forest tiles, and this, let's say if you had recons, this one would be the optimal one, the only one that made sense. Other vehicles here, but still because of this, you kind of lose a little bit, and you'll lose some momentum doing that front switch. Awesome. I don't think it matters too much in this particular style of map, but here are the reinforcement lines. And I don't think they matter on this so much because you have what I'm going to call a super strong base and a super weak base. Basically, having the more units over here is going to overcome the reinforcement time from your opponent. That's just my thought. And just for, giggles, here's the reinforcement for player 1, the air support. It's relatively close in the center. Of course, you're not going to be playing in the center. And over here, why would you do that to yourself? Because realistically, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I made a line, it'd probably look like that for three turns. Yeah, that's still not pretty. That's still not going to handle this little area down here. And I mean, 3 turns will help with anything over here, and possibly anything over here. It's more advantageous, as you would assume, for the weak base. Oh. Anything else? I'll go over when it arrives in the match. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much on CO choice because I think it's more revealed in the game, but it's kind of a toss-up for the other contestants in the finals. It's kind of a toss-up between Kindle and Drake. There's a few others doing some random stuff, but I think it's mostly these two. You'll get who I think is better at the end, but Kindle in general wants to be really aggressive, and Rip wants to be a little more stally. And on a map like this, it's a little bit of a bigger map. I tend to lean towards the stalliness of it. How Kindle needs to win needs to really gain the advantage early and then leverage that. Need to gain city advantage early and then leverage that really well. I think optimally what they're going to want, what Naberius would want to do is I don't know, like just really push hard on his strong side. I think that's his main way to victory, and then be very defensive over here. So real simple, short, sweet, to the point. All right, so let's begin the match. We're just going to kind of skip along until the first, because the capture game is somewhat like already optimized. We're just kind of going to move to the first unit built, which is an APC. So the thing with APCs, I've noticed them much more frequently in matches, and I think I'm going to attribute some of that to Rip's rise in popularity. So people see a player rise up through the ranks and it's really notable. Then they start watching him more. They see, oh, he's using a lot more APCs and other people aren't. Maybe APCs are secretly good. So they start using it, but at the same time, if you don't use it optimally, in my opinion, that it's there's a good chance it's a waste of tempo. Other than that, Rip is probably the best one to watch for APCs to learn how to use them, because he's very efficient with his APCs and his battlecopters, all of his transports in general. And I would say probably most of all is the infantry, right? He's really efficient with the infantry. Moving forward. Big note throughout the match, he's going to keep units like an entire distance away from the APC, so we can just load them, drop them off, go back for more. No, and he has a recon because you need vision. Need vision in fog, just the way it is. Makes a tank on the weak side, and this kind of makes sense to me because the first unit that is going to be produced on this map has to come from the strong side, right? So he knows there's a unit coming from here. So if it's an APC, the best counter to that is a tank. If it's a recon, the best counter for that is a tank. If it's a tank, the best counter for that is a tank. So if he's not expecting to really push and accomplish anything much on this map, well, so be it. Nothing seemingly out of the ordinary. And he makes an artillery. So this is it's kind of one of the key things that you see often with Rip when he makes an APC, he makes an artillery. And I think it's initially he does want the artillery opening, and he needs the APC earlier to, one, to get properties, which always useful, and two, if you think about what makes an artillery good, is that it needs to have support with it, right? So it needs extra units to surround it so you can't attack it, and just create nice, good defensive walls around it. And that's what the infantry often are good for, even if it's not in our artillery. If you get all your units on the front lines, one, you have more units to create walls with, and two, if you wanted to, you will overwhelm your infantry, their infantry with your infantry, right? If you have more infantry, you can get more hits on their infantry and clear away their infantry. So even in the event they do push you, they can't capture any cities, and that's kind of one of the important things about pushing on fronts. And we move forward. And anti-air around day 8. So this is something I learned from Aegis, is that around day 9-ish on a lot of maps is when you start to see battlecopters for various reasons. Income curve, when you get the airport, how good they are on the map in general. So as kind of a counter, you just make an anti-air in anticipation, and ideally you want it on the front line the same time that the opponent gets their battlecopter in the front line. You want to be able to, as soon as you see it, take that puppy out, right? So it can't do any good trades, right? So make one in anticipation. And we see the first opponent unit. Still good movement with this, maximizing what gets in there. And he can just have this guy go in. He could boost this guy to the city again. He can move him over here. There's a lot of things he can do with it. And you see this? He moved his tank up. More on that later. So he's attacking some infantry up here. And this is only problematic because all his tanks are back here. He doesn't have anything over here. It is easy to get. Oh. You know. Does he know? He can't see that city, but oh wait, I guess he knew no one put it. Basically, he takes a free hit. It's not really free hit. He deletes that infantry. Takes more engagements up there. Deletes. Oh, he didn't get that one this time. Gets more infantry. This is kind of this APC is going to have a dual purpose. It's acting as a defender for this artillery, but also it's also dropping off this infantry. So 2 birds, 1 stone, very efficient way of doing this, so that if something were to land on the city or attack into here, you have a great counter system for that. If something does hit the city and let's say it's just on these roads or whatever, pull it off, hit it with the tank, boom, Bob's your uncle. So this is kind of a trap in a way. But will Naberius fall for it? And he has a transport copter. Now this is just my thought, and what I tend to see a lot when I see an APC and a transport copter in general, it's when they start to use this as a defender. So if you use that as a defender, it runs the risk of getting 1, destroyed, or 2, it just has to keep on playing the defender role. So having a battle copter, why did I say that? Having a transport copter allows you to keep having a unit to ferry infantry. And if both of them survive, now you have a really efficient system to keep ferrying infantry. So down here, let's just notice that he took over this city. You saw an infantry on this city earlier, so we're going to assume he has that. Actually, I do know that he has that. Here's what we're going to do. We know he has this city, and he's about to get this city. So right now we know that he's 1,000 above. And we know that because Rip hasn't captured this city, right? This responding city. Onward. So just reorganizing his units into this formation. Oh, I never brought it up, did I? We're going to go back a couple turns, because I forgot I never mentioned it when I said I was going to mention it. So, yeah, it was this turn. I was going to mention it, and you're going to look right at that base. If I get to it. A lot of movement. So right there, right? He didn't move that tank down, he moved to the left. And that's kind of an interesting feature of this map, is that to a little extent, you kind of have a roadway to the strong side. So it is somewhat reasonable that you could just use this base to keep feeding the strong side, and I hadn't thought of that. And it's a little bit risky, depending on how your opponent reacts. But basically, his opponent normally doesn't want to attack into this. He's betting on that, but he's also making sure there's a sizable force over here. So the concept, and this is just, me kind of, this is what I think his intention is that he's making a sizable force here to force Naberius to fight on his weak side. He doesn't want to fight on the side, but it's kind of forcing him because he has to deal with all these forces, right? So Naberius normally wants to fight here, and I think to kind of get more of Rip's forces over here, he's going to have to figure out something where he's actively threatening this side a little bit or something. We'll see. But going back to, was it this one? Yeah, it was this turn. All right, continuing on. Organizing stuff. Where were we? We were here-ish. Now, just another thing, just because I really want to drive home the point. 1, 2, 3 into that transport copter. 1, 2, 3 into that APC. It is always effective movements. And we do have confirmation that he does have this city now. So that is, Rip does not have this city, these two cities yet. So currently it's probably going to, there's a good chance it's going to change, but currently he has 2,000 up on Rip. And he delays those cities from Rip. And he's going to start capturing this. This guy has no chance of stopping that. He's going to get this next turn. Pops his unit on there, gets a good view of what's going on, sees there's a lot of infantry over here. He's going to probably want to threaten that. And this is always kind of, to me, a risky ploy, is to wall break infantry with anti-air, because to make sure this guy still has a job to do. He still is needed to deter and destroy battlecopters. So you're going to need to make sure that he's well surrounded by defensive bulky units that can take can take at least a hit and not die, because it needs protection. And he does get this. We now know that he is 3,000 above Rip in terms of income. Rip still has not gotten his cities, hasn't gotten this city, whereas Naberius has gotten this, right? There's a pretty good wall break right here. Only issue is that right here, this guy's definitely gonna get hit, right? You traded 6 HP on a tank or a copter, which is more expensive. I don't know if it was worth pushing into this yet. I don't know what his vision was currently, but I don't know if it was worth pushing into this, because he knew this guy was here. You had to know. And we see in a secondary battlecopter. We see that he too has an APC. Finishes off a tank. Tries to stop that capture. Doesn't want to get too far behind in funds. And he's pulling back. He does. I'm going to say he does sack this. I don't care about that because it was an effective trade, essentially. And he has another one prepared before this turn, right? So he knows this guy was going to get sacked. He produced no one. He just needs to get that to the front line, because he knows there is a battlecopter out there. So far he really has only taken like one decent engagement. Actually, no, I don't think he has taken a good engagement on. I think this is the first. This one here is the first engagement from like a tank he's able to take on a city, and it's only so far utilized on a 4 HP tank. I don't think it's that great, to be honest. He really needs to. And on this map, I think it's somewhat difficult on this map to take those engagements. All right, Rip's turn. So before I actually show you that turn, let me just kind of point something out, and I want you to notice the power meter. So Naberius, wait, at one point, like halfway through his turn, is able to pop his normal power, and I think if he moved to plan this a little bit better, he would foreseen this. But I do the same thing, so I'm not going to get him too much. In this case, he's just charging Rip up. And he does it because Kindle has the normal power and wants to use her normal power and not her super. She really needs to get her power first in this scenario, because if you think about it, let's say she doesn't pop the power this turn. What ends up happening is Rip is guaranteed to have his power, right? And if Rip gets his power first, so that's one turn with a super that isn't building Kindle's charge whatsoever. She's just getting overcharged. It's not getting she's just losing that benefit from actually receiving damage. Let's say she uses her power or her super the next turn. That's an additional turn. None of her units are building charge. So Rip is going to get 2 turns in a row against Naberius, where Naberius can't build power charge. He just can't. So in terms of just the CO power game, like inner game ploy, whatever you want to call it, Rip is going to get the advantage. And I think the biggest issue is because Naberius did not pop his normal when he had the chance. I think that would have minimized some of the issue, possibly. But ideally what Naberius would have loved to do is right before Rip gets to, if Naberius could get a turn right before Rip is able to get his power, then pop Kindle's power and overcharge Rip as much as he can. That's ideally what he would want to do. And that's just looking at the power, not what's on the field. Whether these two can happen with relation to each other is a whole nother story. The point is, Rip is in a better position with the power. And he pops it. That's 2 damage on every unit. And one of the advantages is that, well, I'll show you at the end of this turn. Just know that all the units against Kindle take 2 HP of damage. So let's get some really good hits on this match. Then Naberius pops his Urban Blight. I noticed how much damage that did. Okay, that was way too far. I want to go here. No, there. Here we go. So keep an eye on that tally of how much damage Urban Blight does. It's about 2,000. That is pathetic. And it's because you can, and Rip knows is that he could see Naberius had his power ready. So what did he do? He kept all his units off of cities. And because it's fog, Naberius doesn't know if he has units on the cities or not. So it's Naberius doesn't know to hold on to the power or not, and so it's easier to avoid Kindle's super, especially on larger maps where it's easier to keep your units off cities. So in that respect, Rip's super is better, and the more times he can pop it, he's guaranteed damage no matter what. The more in Rip's favor this match becomes. All right. So another shot at a copter, clean up more units. So here we see that Naberius put a bunch of units here, and I'm just gonna say I don't like this. The reason I don't like this is because he's using all these, if you just think of it in terms of just money, right? All this money is being used to stop this one guy from getting income. So if you think about it, this is day 15. I think this map goes to like the map match allows this game to go to like 30 days. So if Rip got this and survived for so basically, let's say Naberius gets this for 15 days, right? That is 15,000. That's an extra, let's say, 2 tanks. But he has to hold on for that long. And so how much value is here right now, right? That's almost equivalent, to be honest. He's spending all these resources to something equally. The gist of the matter is I think he's spending way too many resources just to stop this capture. Even if he gets it, which he's not going to get it this turn, he's going to get at least minimum 2 complete turns. I think all this money value is much better spent dealing with these over here, right? Even if Rip gets it, Naberius already has guarantee. We know he has 3,000 up on Rip. That itself is going to make a decent chunk, right? There's a lot of games he can play in build order to try to manipulate Rip that he can leverage. This little thing, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it to challenge this with all these resources. Either use fewer resources just to keep delaying it, or and basically just use more value to deal with this, to push into this. Because once you can figure out a way to pop this guy open, then boom, you take out this guy and your air support can run rampant. Oh well. Rip comes back in, cleans up some units. I'm gonna say this is a little bit more spread out for his units. I don't think it's a great wall, but I think he wanted to just do back a bunch of damage, and so I don't know. I don't get really to say anything about that. So he realizes his anti-air is kind of vulnerable right here, so he makes another, of course. Because of income reasons, he makes a mech, and I'm excited to see if he can utilize it effectively. Most of the times when I see mechs mid to late game, it's difficult to get them, 1, out there, and 2, in a position where your opponent can push in and you can take that good engagement trade. So this whole time, right, he spent like 15 days-ish not posing any threats on this front. And I think if he did pose any threats, that Rip would have to respond and have to divert vehicles away from this front down here. So, and that would be beneficial for Naberius, because now he actually gets to fight those vehicles on the front he wants to fight, the ideal front for him. And I think yes, I agree to this. In terms of just raw value, he's going to lose because he's next to mountains and forests and whatnot. But he needed to do something over here a lot sooner, is my thought. But he's finally doing something. Another good engagement from the city. It is going to get a hit from this unless he can do something, because that's about to heal to 6. It's going to still do a decent amount of damage, and pops another Urban Blight. So this one did about 10. That's actually really good. I think that's probably stemmed due to him not holding on to that power. I think he actually pops it as soon as he gets it. Great. And because he pops it as soon as he gets it, it's harder for Rip to deal with it, right? Still applying a decent force over here to try to get this. Pulling back a little bit. Starts bringing tanks down here. And cleans up his infantry, right? So now he has units down here. I don't know what Naberius' And for this to have worked, Naberius needs to have started producing vehicles over here. So there's X amount of time where Rip has, in my thought process, that Rip has to get down here. And, well, get some units down here probably from this base. We'll see what happens. So he pulls back into this force and this force that's moving downward. And if you notice, he chose to just let his opponent see it. And one, he gets there faster, which I don't know if his opponent can get tanks down there soon enough. But it also kind of does this unique ploy. There we go. So he knows that there are units going over there. There is X units going to this front. So Naberius needs to figure out what X is. He needs to solve for X. And that's really difficult in this scenario because he only has what he can see to go by. So he has to figure out what X is and avert respective resources. Well, let's say he has to shift A amount of forces from this front and produce B amount of forces from this front. Right, so he has to make sure that he equals these two combined forces equals X, but at the same time, he can't let A fall below, well, hold on, he has to have A greater than or equal to whatever. We'll call that front C. We'll call this one front C. You can't let that fall below the power of front C, because then front C could get advantage and get cities and shit. And so he has to figure all that out, and at least I can only guesstimate, unless he has some secret method of knowing how much Rip does. So that's gonna be a little game ploy that's gonna be hard to deal with, and I think that gives Rip the advantage in this scenario. Didn't think you were going to math class, did you? Right, he draws some forces. Rip's gonna push into clean out, and this is a little bit of a gamble from my thought process, just because you don't know if he prepared vehicles down there. But in this case, he didn't. I think maybe Rip knew there was like one extra turn if he had to. Well, because of these forces where he sees them, right? He probably believes that Naberius is one turn behind on getting forces from over here down here, so he has that much time to get there. He pushes forward. Oh, I don't think I mentioned it. And here's a side note that over here he's fighting over two cities, right? We'll say just these two cities, right? So there's already a decent force of his opponent over here. So to win these over, he would have to invest a large amount of resources to get this, right? Let's say he has to do 2 money symbols to get these two cities, which would increase the disparity, reduce the disparity by 2,000. Okay, so let's say down here he knows there in these two cities there's not many vehicles for him to have to fight over, right? He knows his opponent doesn't have many vehicles. So that means the cost to down here to, let's say, obtain these would probably be is notably less. Let's say $1 symbol. However, getting these two cities, which are only gotten by the opponent, don't lead to more than just a 2,000 disparity. It's a 4,000 disparity, because Naberius is reduced by 2,000 and Rip is increased by 2,000. This is bang for the buck. This is a much more enticing offer if Rip can pull it off. Okay. Moving on. And so we know that Naberius has this now. So he's actually 4,000 up on Rip right now. Which... yeah, let's say 4,000 up on Rip. Clears off his infantry, sends more units down here. Make sure he takes the cities. I don't see any way he gets away with this without sitting on the cities, because you can't. If Kindle gets on the cities, she can knock you off. I mean, this right here looks a little bit silly, but he actually has vision in here, and he knows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's no way a tank can just get a straight hit on here. He has to blow through all this. So it actually works out in his favor. It looks a little bit weird, but it's actually a decent, pretty good wall. And he positions this mech really nicely to hit whatever he needs to. I think it's going to hit over here, but we'll see. We'll see. So he comes in with some tanks, trying to clear off stop this capture. I don't know how to feel about this tank. I think if he doesn't put anything on here, it's a bad idea, because then this tank is just forgone to delay a capture, which again, it's not like it's a city flip, but just to throw away a $7,000 unit. How much money do you have, man? I think it's better leveraged against your opponent than just kind of used to stop a cap. All right. Disrupting his cap, he sees the medium tank, and I'll show you in a second, but well, in a couple turns. But I think the way Rip handles the medium tank is, for me, it's an extra thing to consider, right? And it works because of the positioning and the units he has. And so Rip really wants to get this. He actually joint caps it. He's opened up to this tank to just a mech hit, and then a more beefier unit hits the city, protecting another tank. This tank goes in the forest. We now see is another battlecopter, kind of SOL, and he should reposition. Oh, he's going for this city. That's what he told us right there. He's going for this city. This city, not a fat chance. All right, now let's see how Naberius pushes forward. Tank hit on the mech. Recon to delay the cap. Again, I understand what you're trying to do, but I still can't help but feel like you wasted these. And I feel like that way because you destroyed a 6 HP mech and you hit an infantry, and now these guys are right in the middle of your forces. The recon, I am fine with writing off because you have vision of all the opponent's army, right? I sack recons all the time. It happens. The tank, though, I wonder because you didn't get a fair trade. You're not going to get a fair trade with it unless you destroy the majority of your opponent on this turn. So we got the anti-air. That's great. Very effective. Got rid of Rip's vision. Good. Medium tank hit. He gets a hit on the artillery. The counter in this area for that tank. Oh, and another medium tank. Hits the guy in the city. Clears off the city. Police says he puts a unit on there. But it's defended with that, and he gets the artillery down, right? And hits there. So, one, yes, he just took out all his Rip's counters. But I think the thing to consider here is what he did by doing that. So one, he got Rip's power meter up for essentially to supercharge. And what Rip's going to do for a second time is get the power first, right? So not only is his power stronger, he's getting it first, which means he can retaliate pretty good. And this is where I think he does a really good job of dealing with the medium tanks. So he's just doing enough engagements just to get the Typhoon. Doesn't matter, it's still for how much HP it has left on that. Anti-air did a good trade for the copter. He is finishing off essentially all of the opponent's units in this area. Up here, he finishes off the small units, takes another hit with the... So, both of those medium tanks are now at 6 HP. That's right around where it's no longer good at what its intended purpose is. And another issue is the fact that look at this area just down here. He is surrounded by tanks. Even if the medium tank was full HP, he could get it. He can't just one-shot a tank, right? So he gets a hit in the tank. There's a bunch of other tanks. He can't counter all. If each tank is a threat, he can't counter all the threats, right? There's just too many other things to do. He has to choose the lesser of all of the equals he can choose. Wow, that was just word salad right there. Wow. But basically, there's all these. Let's say each of these tanks is going to threaten something next turn. He can only deal with one of them, even if he was at full HP. So by destroying all these supporting units, because this guy does want support for that reason, this guy's role is diminished significantly, right? And same over here, this role is significantly diminished. One of the fun things about this is that medium tanks have no vision. They've got one. So unless you have other units to help you gain vision, they're downright useless. I think that how he chose to ignore the actual tank and deal with the other aspect of the threat was ingenious, and I only think it's ingenious because I didn't think of it. And he pops, so he waits to get to his super again before he pops it, and I mean, it leaves you more charge in the end, but I don't know. Again, I wouldn't probably push in here. I'd probably come back, lick my wounds. I don't know, that's just my thought, man. What the Urban Blight really does is it delays this capture, this swing. Which, for that purpose, it's not a bad purpose if that's what you have to do. I think it's just a little bit late in the game to be worrying about that. And he pulls back the rest of his force. Alright. Back to Rip. So, he gets vision using that infantry. That's one of the nice things is that using the infantry on this map and using a APC, you actually gain, by like doing what he's doing, he's gaining vision. He doesn't have a recon, he's just gaining vision. And it's already kind of hard to dislodge this guy off of a mountain, so do you want to waste And if it's cramped in this area, do you want to waste one of your units and one of your turns trying to hit this guy? Not necessarily. I don't think getting rid of vision in this instance is that powerful. I think what Naberius could have done in this match is play defensively like Rip did in the early game, where there's not much, but if you do push in, he can hit you, and just front shift some of the heavier hitting units over here. Now again, that's hard to, like, again, it's that solve for X equation. It's hard to do that, but once you've engaged once or twice here, you kind of have an idea what the force is. Cleaning up some spaces. Yeah, he's guaranteed next turn. Well, yeah, he's pretty much guaranteed to get this flip next turn. So he pulls back his units, and this is also a really nice tactic, and you'll see why. He left a couple of units, right? Just a couple of units. So he comes back in with an extra 2 HP and smashes the units and pops an Urban Blight. Wait, did he have the Urban Blight? No, he just got it. Okay. So that further delays this capture and this capture. He probably has a guy who can hunt that guy off. There he is. That's to stop that capture. Defeat that tank. He just moved his tank in there to hit that guy? Hold on. Back. Okay, never mind. But still, just sending this guy in to hit this, I don't know if that was a great idea. I don't think, because you didn't gain much by sacking that tank. You already knew what was there most of the time. Like, most of it. Let's going back to this lower quadrant, because I was almost skipping it. He hits that tank. Now he brings all these tanks back in. He pulled them out of the way entirely. So because he knew his opponent was going to push in, right? So he did his initial attack. He knew his opponent pulled back to lick his wounds and was about to even hit harder, right? So he pulls back, lets him think he's pushing in to attack, and then sends all his units in to deal some damage. And again, this guy's back at 6 HP. Finishes off some units. Right here, he just has to play defensively, and for the rest of the game, he's just going to act defensively. He doesn't have to push. All the threat, Naberius is coming to him. So he just sent in a lot of units just to go to stop these captures. And, you know, okay. Let's look at the, what was it, the stats right now. He has a lot more kills than on Naberius, and just of value, he has a lot, right? So already it's not looking good. And in general, to save on time, Rip has such an advantage right now. I'm going to call the game. I'm going to call the game, and we're just going to kind of fast forward through this. Because once you start to snowball, there's not really much that's notable in the game. So Rip gets another super, his third super, and pops it, right? A lot of damage, right? Naberius pops his power like late into the turn, and he resigns. And to be honest, I don't blame him. Let's put on the show funds and go back to the beginning. So, well, we're not going to go back to the beginning. We're going to go to, this is the turn that really starts to show it, right? So Naberius gains the income advantage here, and he maintains it, and he maintains it, and practically through the entire match, he is maintaining it, right? He is getting a sizable income lead. But if you look at the value, right, of his army value, it's not too far away from Rip, and that's because Rip is just taking better engagements this whole time. And it's not until, let's say, like this turn where it really starts to flip, right? Near the end is when it really starts to flip, where Rip really can't benefit from having extra money at this point. There's not enough turns to accumulate it. And I for me, this kind of tells the lesson that daily income is not everything in the match, right? So and so it's not worth necessarily just fighting over that to a large degree. There's so many other variables that play into this. Because like, even though Naberius had the income lead, I would say for most of the match, Rip was had the leg up on him. And I was hoping you enjoyed this match, mostly because I really enjoyed it, because again, there's a lot of good key points where I think you could take away a lot from Rip's playstyle. And hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.